When it comes to EVE Online, every player wants to know the most effective tactic available. You want to know the meta. The meta controls everything. It determines what will and will not happen. Knowing the meta will alter your views, make you question your reality. It might even make you laugh. And now, you're part of it. You're watching The Meta Show.
Welcome, everyone, to this week's Meta Show, the premier Twitch stream of the week with the latest news and updates of EVE Online and your Imperium. Whether you're a seasoned capsulator or just getting started, this is the place for the expert analysis and in-depth discussions and the hottest takes on everything happening in New Eden and the Alliance. Join us as we dive into this week's biggest stories, battle reports, and strategic moves that shape the future of our game. Stay tuned and be ready to undock with the best intel in the game. So, today, I have a very special guest, Ranger Gamma, with us. And while we'll be digging into that a little bit in a minute, Ranger, do you want to say hi?
Well, hello, everybody. Am I an AI? Maybe. More than one director has been accused of being an AI. It's Nine Toes. Yes, that is true.
I assure you, Ranger is alive and well, and I've been talking to him for months and had no idea who he was until last week, which is exactly why I decided to ask him to join us on the show today and talk a little bit more about his role. Ranger confirmed bot. That's awesome. All right. So, but first, let's talk about our major story of the week. I know you guys want a update on what's going on with the war front and what we're doing. However, I don't have much to say, but I do have this week's Blockbuster, and I will share that with you here in a second. So, if you have not been to the movies this summer, I highly encourage you to go see Catch Me If You Can. It is a true story of Horde's retreat, an alliance on the run. We have not seen much action this week other than seeing Horde run. We had a little bit of action in Utopia and a Fortisar kill, and a little bit of Frat getting zonked in Zarzak. But other than that, that's about as much news as I can give you on the war front this week.
The Fireside today, if you would like that. It was a rehash for everybody.
Absolutely, yes.
So Vintage went and put together a list of enemy structures, kills. So I'm just going to read it for everybody. This is the same list we gave on the Fireside just about an hour ago. So 35 Skyhooks, 23 Metnox, 22 Athenors, 2 Rataros, 59 Astra Houses, 2 Asbels, 1 Tatara, 21 Fortizars, with one of them in Hull, going to die in the not too distant future, and 2 Keep Stars. And then in addition, we've also taken 69 systems.
Wow.
And you heard that right. It's 69. We count them. You can see it on Dotlin.
That's a good number. Are we allowed to talk about hell camping at all?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. This is my new favorite pastime, by the way. I've not enjoyed anything more in this game than hell camping at this point. I've pitched a tent and I'm there.
So the hell camps go back many years. We'll go back just a couple of years to M2. That was kind of the new meta of hell camp, where we did it on a keep star, and that's something that was new for me because we'd never done a hell camp on a structure that you could dock in. That was not a thing. There was no tether in the original hell camps. So this one on an NPC station, whether it's in low sec or null sec that just doesn't have SOV, the NPC null sec, which is what Utopia is, that's a hell camp more of the old school, where when your ship was there, that was it. There was no tether. Now, yes, and it did drop a fort on that grid, but back in the day, there wasn't any, and you would just bubble the hell out of an undock, and you would sit there. The original ones, we did it in BTAC-R, which coincidentally is in the region that we sort of just conquered.
Yeah.
When we did that hell camp, there were no citadels back then. There was a outpost of the old style, a true outpost. There was just one in the system, and we sat there and did all those pieces. And you would log in, you would get a drone bunny, and you would go to work, and you'd come home, and you had like 10 kills on a slow bad day, because you could have 256 people shoot one person. You'd have one guy in like an insta-locking scepter with hundreds of drones off of dummies. Some people use sentry carriers too. We used to use dummies a lot for that. You just kick out a flight of sentries and go to work. And those are kind of the original hell camps, was of that style. So this new one where, you know, there's some bubbles and we're just sitting there kind of watching them, and it was really funny to see the pings from goblins of how, you know, how they weren't going to do anything, and then, you know, they'd undock and shoot the University fleet in frigates, and they're like, look, we broke the camp. It's like, okay. There was like 20 guys from University there.
Yeah. They were very active last weekend. I know that for sure.
Yeah, it's just, it's kind of entertaining. Asher was mentioning this again on the Fireside. We all got kind of a kick out of doing that, and just watching Gobbins totally not morale pings to his guys about breaking a camp and shooting some bubbles.
So, and speaking of Gobbins, I just want to give him a little bit of a shout out. He did show up for Nom's Signo Vigil last night.
He was,
and that was a very nice gesture. We haven't probably seen that since Vile Rat at this point, so I was happy to see that. So shout out to Gobbins. I don't know that I would ever say that in my life. Dave might slap my hand for saying it. I don't know, but there you go. You got it. By the way, speaking of Dave, I just want to mention Dave was not able to make it today. He was originally scheduled to work, and the events of the week were just a little heavy. I get it. I'm there too. And he decided that today was a good day to let me try to do this on my own. I don't know why he trusted me with it, but he did. So here I am. That's why you're missing Dave.
And, you know, not only was Gobbins there last night, I saw at least 6 people from CCP. I think somebody said there might be 7.
Yeah.
I saw there were 6. They did 2 of them, and I honestly am forgetting which 2 CCPers did. I've got a picture of it, but they did a landing strip of mobile Sinos from the Nom Palace towards McMahon-Fist. There's several pictures of this. I've got a couple pictures of it myself, but it was really, really great. They dropped, I would say, probably 100 of them easy between the 2 doing it. It was Mark and Zealous doing saying there.
Yeah.
They were there. There was people who have come back to, you know, honor a guy that I met 10 years ago. I met Noms in Vegas. So many of us did. You heard a lot of stories last night from Merc and Brisk on Rampage. And it was so incredible to see. So Brisk and Merc were basically doing the 1DQ part of the Signo Vigil. I was in Utah Q and did the fleet and the vigil there. We had quite a number of newts and hostiles who came to UQ. I think there was probably more in UQ just because it was closer to their space, but there was at least a dozen in both of names of people, and it was really great to see. And it's a reminder, as we've all talked about, that, you know, when you get into a nerd game like Eve, you form friendships with all kinds of people from around the world, people you've never met.
Yeah, firsthand, I totally agree with that. I couldn't tell you more how amazing this community is. Even last night, I jumped in and to Mumble and was asking for help and got all the support I needed, which was amazing. So I cannot give more props to the community that we have in Goons. All right, so let's get to the dirty of our top story of today. So I coerced Ranger into joining me today for an interview. I realized, because Ranger and I have been talking for a number of months and kind of kept in touch with each other, that last week I didn't know who Ranger was. And when I asked him, he said he was chief of staff. I was quite embarrassed by not knowing that. And I thought, we could probably learn to know more of our alliance leaders, and asked him to join me today. So, Ranger, I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah,
We have connected on something that we share mutually as a love in this game. But I would like you to share. How did you first get involved with Goons, and what made you decide this is the right place for you?
So my Eve time goes back now 15 years. So it's coming up. It'll be 15 years next month, actually. So 2009 is when I first started. I was, doing the high sec kind of thing. Mission running, ratting, mining, all the classic things when you first start. Got into wormholes. Was doing that. Wormholes were brand new at the time. They had just come out when I first started playing. Did that for a little while, and it was okay. The corp I was in just had some issues. We eventually moved into nullsec. Our space got invaded by PL at the time, and joined Razor. There was some drama in that corp, and I ended up joining. At the time, it was Deco. This was even before the CFC existed, but I was in Fatal Ascension. Lines called Fatal Ascension that was part of Deco at that time. We were living in Deck. Um, Crimson, where is Razor? Yeah, that should tell you right there the answer to that question. But anyway, I was in Fatal Ascension. Actually ended up joining a corporation of Aussies, which was difficult because I was the only American in the corp. So I was in a corp by myself. They would go to bed as I was getting up, and vice versa. We were literally, I never saw them, never really talked to them. And Eve by yourself is kind of dull. That was, especially in nullsec, that was dull. So I ended up staying with that corporation, and they moved to TNT. So I was in Wibla's Alliance way back in the day. This would have been about 2012. Had some things going on in my real life, so I took a little bit of a break. I was in high sec, just doing missions. This is when the Sisters of Eve ships first come out, so I was running loyalty points to get like the Stratios and the Astero and doing all those kind of pieces. Looking around, and I knew I wanted to come back to the CFC. I was there in the initial fleets at the founding of the CFC when we invaded Fountain, actually, to take it away from an alliance called IT, literally the letters I and T. So I was there. This was, I think you guys will like this. This was before tie-dye existed. I was in the assault frigate fleet I was in a tackle fleet. We were flying Wolf class assault frigates. That's what I was in. We jumped into the system. We were going for the headshot in 6 VDT at the time. And we're sitting there waiting and waiting. We knew our cap fleet was coming, and our supers and our titans, we knew they were coming. All of a sudden, this massive cap fleet jumps in. It's red and yellow and neutrals through the whole thing. And we're like, oh shit, this is not good. The enemy beat our cap fleet here. RFC turns us into attack. I don't know what they were going to do. You couldn't tackle supers and titans with assault frigates at the time. I guess we were going to go against the carriers and dreadnoughts. There were no faxes then. We just line up, and the FC starts yelling in our channel like to abort and to break off. It was our fleet. It was our caps and our supers and our titans. But it turned out this system was under so much lag that the only thing that was showing up was the security status. That high sec, you shoot somebody's security status. That's the only thing that would show up. So you couldn't see them if they were in your corp or in your alliance. That was it. So we nearly attacked our own capital fleet because the lag was so crushingly bad in the system. That was at the beginning of, like I said, the beginning of the IT war. So fast forward, I'm in HiSec. I'm just looking around to see who I want to do. I joined a corporation in Goonswarm itself called Wildly Inappropriate Dot. It actually had a dot at the end of it. Yeah, Wildly Inappropriate Dot. I was with them for a number of years, and at the time I became SRP guy for WeDot. That was my role within the corporation. I literally did the corporation's SRP. Uh, I met a man named Ted McManfist, who the Keepstar in 1DQ is named after. Most of us called him Space Dad. He ran what became University. He ran the predecessor organization of that.
I love
And
that.
I was sitting, yeah, I was sitting one day and I made some offhand comment, and this should be a lesson to all of you. You never make an offhand comment where a director can hear it, especially when you don't know they're a director, because I didn't know who Ted was. I
That's why
just
we're
knew him as,
interviewing today, by the way.
yeah, I just knew him as Space Dad. And he was big in Theta at the time. He, Beyond Quiet You, that was, you got the director, that's all your fault. That's my story. But Ted recruited me into what was then called Little Bees, and I was again, we would call it a faculty. It was more of a mentorship back then. It was like a peer-to-peer mentoring. You would get one or two little bees that would be assigned to any, we called them big bees. So I was a big bee, and you would teach them whatever it was. You could have, there were different areas, like there was the ratting guys and the mining guys and the industry guys, right? You would do all of that. That system lasted for a little while, maybe a year after I joined it, and then it became more like what University is, where it was a lot more formal and we ran classes. The original class was run by Sirhan. He did the initial intro. It was literally called WTF 101. It was the initial intro to Goons, how to take a
I actually
Stargate, how to use a
I
jump
actually
bridge.
took that class in university when I joined.
Yep.
I took
Yes.
that class.
That was the very first class in University. Um, I then wrote the next about 10 classes. I was named as chair of classes. I wrote the 102 to like 110 or 111 classes. Elvalar did write one of them. There was a mining class in there. So he wrote one, I wrote all of the others. And I was chair of classes for about 5 years or so,
Wow.
until now, at the same time I was doing this, I joined a group known as Liberty Squad, whose leader is a person that no one has ever heard of, right? I mean, this guy named Asher, I didn't know who
Nobody.
he was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the USTZ group. There was European Union, that was Europe. Liberty was USTZ. I joined Liberty. It soon became a group that doesn't exist, right? Because there totally isn't a group called Reavers. And Asher came to me one day. Well, he came to everybody, and I was the fool who volunteered to help. So you're looking at the one director who's ever volunteered for something. And he said, I need help with HR, processing applications. Um, and so I did that, and I told him I would do that. I got in, and that's where the picture that I sent you, Betty, comes from,
Oh,
is
that
from that
one.
first. Yep.
Didn't
Uh,
Asher create this for you?
and then Asher made this for me. I joined the recruiting and looked at it, and there were over 70 applications to join Reavers that Asher hadn't processed. And I was
Coming
like,
from
okay.
Yeah, coming from someone in recruitment as one of my favorite jobs, that's a lot of applications to process.
Yeah, and I did a very simple thing. I just rejected them all and said, okay, reset them. It was too many to try to go over. Um, and from there, it ended up in 2020, the summer of 2020. Asher came to me and said, hey, can you help me with a project? And again, you would think I would learn my lesson, but I had not. And I said, okay. I thought he wanted me to do something with Reavers. He didn't. And I created a group that we now call Procurement. That wasn't its original name. It had a couple of them, but the Procurement is the most visible and common name that we refer to it now. That was the summer of 2020. I ended
Gosh,
up
that's
as
really close to me joining at this point. That's really close.
I ended up as a lot of people in Goonswarm specifically know. I ended up getting very seriously ill that fall to the beginning of Vietnam. I was there for the first about month of it, and then I was in the hospital for 79 days
Oh
before
wow.
I came home. Yeah, I was in the ICU for a month. I actually died, saw the white light, kind of the whole thing. Came home and recovered, and then I ended up back in the hospital with grade 2 sepsis. Nearly died again. Had to have part of my foot amputated, which is why I'm now known as Nine Toes, because that's actually true. I actually only have 9 because I had to have one amputated and part of my foot. Uh, so the second time I almost died, and when I met Mittens in Vegas in uh, after that surgery, that would have been 22. Uh, the first thing he did is he looked at me and he said, "You son of a bitch." That was the way he greeted me. The first time I'd ever met him, he said, "You are not allowed to get sick again." Uh, in 23, I ended up becoming chief of staff, and I have to admit, it was the second time I'd actually volunteered for something. Asher was looking for a new chief of staff when Clavis stepped down. Um, and so you are looking at not only the only director to ever volunteer once, but the only director to ever volunteer twice. So I volunteered to be chief of staff, and I've been doing that now um, for about a year and some change, like 15 months or something. I can't remember when it exactly was, but it's been over a year now.
Wow.
And that's what I do now.
So, in coming into the role, what were kind of some of the changes that you needed to put in place as chief of staff? Was there anything that surprised you about the role when you came into it? Kind of talk about coming into it.
So the biggest change to do is whenever you sit down, you always have your ideas of what you think should change. And what I tell my own students when I'm teaching is like anybody can have an idea of something to change, but is it actually possible? Will it actually work? And the honest answer is sometimes yes and sometimes no. So one of the things that I wanted to do was to uh, make sure that the people who are in Ilum are active and are doing things. So we've done some activity purges. We brought in new people, and it's the space retirement and doing all those kind of things just to make sure that everybody's there. And the biggest kind of nightmare I have is burning out our people.
Yeah.
Making a director who's working in their real life, and then as virtually all of us do, almost everybody in Eve has got a job or they're a student. It's usually one of those two things. There's not too many people who are retired. We do have some, but they're kind of a minority of our group. And it's okay, how do I not burn out our directorate? Or how do we how does a situation not burn out our directorate? Because it's not like it's always my choice. But
Yeah.
that's one of the biggest things, is to make sure our directorate's active
I
and to
mean,
make sure we're talking.
there's a good balance between IRL and space paperwork for sure. I understand that. What does your daily life look like as chief of staff? What things are you encountering each day? What are you dabbling in? What are you touching? Tell us a little bit about that.
So probably the biggest thing that I do is, when I get up, I look at Discord, I look at Jabber, I look at the forums to see if I've got any messages. The vast majority of them come through on Discord, and it's a lot of it is just reading through what has happened in the 8 hours from when I stepped away from my system to when I come back and look at it and just go, okay, what's happened? There's no 2 days are really the same. It's always a question of, did something break or has something gone really well? And I'll tell you, just the other day, I went to bed and it's like, okay, we're gonna go hit some SOV over in this area,
Mm-hmm.
and I wake up and I look at the map and I'm like, what the hell happened here? And our guys, which is a credit solely to them. I was not involved in this at all. It's all on a relative handful of guys who, over late US into AUTZ, had smashed an entire region. And I'm just like, and I sat down with Zintage a little bit later, like, what the hell happened? He's like, dude, I don't know. It's just like, we just got on a roll. I gave them like 100 Entosis Drakes, and I'm like, all right, when you all get shot down and you need more, let me know. And one of them actually came to me. I was stunned. I thought he was joking. He's like, I need more Strunt to refill my Drakes. And I'm like, I don't understand what you're asking me for. Because we assume Entosis Drakes are going to die. He actually was running out of fuel in his Entosis Drakes. I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't actually know how to process what he said to me because it was so foreign to what I expected. I expected him to come back and say, oh, I lost 40 Drakes, build some more. What he actually said is, I need more Strunt because I'm running out of fuel. And it was just insane. But no 2 days are the same. It can be super quiet. You can have some strange thing happen. As chief of staff, my goal is to look inward to Goonswarm. The Imperium is an outward-facing thing. That's something that CD deals with. All the guys in CD who don't get nearly as much credit for the insane amount of work that those guys do. It's a small organization. I talk with the CD guys pretty much every day because there's a lot of influence between how this alliance works and how we are doing something, and so we talk a lot between, okay, here's an internal Goonswarm thing, they may pass it to me. I'm like, oh, here's something that actually is involving an ally. I pass it to CD. So I talk to the CD guys pretty much every day. But it's, you never know. It's a different level of just talking to people. So I spend a lot of time on Discord, a little bit on Jabber. Almost all of it's on Discord because the classic thing I can use on my phone, just talking to people.
Yeah, I get that. So correct me if I'm wrong. So this means you're second in command, correct?
It does. In the most formal piece, the organization for Goonswarm is a little more fluid at the highest level. So Asher's at the top, and then there's a few of us underneath that, like, formally, technically, yes, I hold the second in command position. But in reality, if one of these other people came to me and said, hey, we gotta do something, and I said no, we both would go to Asher and like, okay, X person says we should do this. I think it's a terrible idea. We lay out our case, and Asher makes the final call. It's a lot more cooperative, and I hate kind of the word of, like, I don't want to say the C word because our enemies use it, and we've always memed on that. But there's a lot more cooperation and coming to a consensus among the highest level in our leadership to do it, to where Asher is the guy, and when he says something, we go with it. But we also all try and take as much off of Asher's plate as we can. So if I can do something without having to poke Asher 10 times a day, which I more or less already do, then we do it. We're all trying to save the load. Asher puts a lot more work in mental time than anyone outside of probably a handful of us know, because we see it.
Oh yeah.
We go through it. So we all try that handful of us who are at the highest level, we all try and pull as much of it onto our own plates as we can. And it's rare, in my opinion, that we have a huge throwdown brawl where it's just like, no, this is the way it's got to be, and I'm like, no, it's got to be this way. And then we both go to Asher, and Asher picks a third option that we all never considered. That does happen, but that's the nature. At this level, it's all about talking to each other. We got to do it. And it's the most important part is communication. It's, if you're not communicating your idea, well, then honestly, your idea doesn't really matter because no one knows what you're doing. So you have to be able to communicate it.
So speaking of communication, and looking for my next victim for highlighting another alliance leader, can you break down kind of the organizational structure as best you can without giving anything away?
So yes and no. Goonswarm is broken into a couple of kind of really broad categories. We have a directorate list that has these, but you have like the military side of things. So the head of the military really falls on a couple of people, and again, Asher's at the top. Um, but when you go down underneath that piece, the military arm, right? You've got somebody like Sniper, who's head of Cords. You've got Toaster and Zintage, who are military directors. You've got high level people like that. You've got really senior FCs who, are in Illiman. We talked to somebody like Apple, somebody like um, Kunmi, somebody like Zungen. High level people who are doing things. Uh, they're in different organizations. They're doing different pieces. When you look at our industrial wing, there's overlap with it. Kunmi is big in our industrial wing. I do some of the industrial stuff. Kaz does finance. That kind of falls into the industry. It also falls into the military because when the SRP guys come to me and Kaz for money, one of the two of us moves the money. Um, the other part that you could really do is kind of an industrial one would be GSOL, right? They do jump bridges, they do citadel fueling, managing the shubs that we've got, doing the skyhooks, doing all of those pieces. The two principal directors in there would be Sopleb and Delta Flux.
Yeah.
And then when you go into the relations of people, you've got the CD guys. The head of CD is Ralos. Shangley and Teabagger are directors within CD. Their stories, they've got some fun stories for it. You've got some hidden people too, like our Black Hand agents. The only Black Hand agent we ever acknowledge is Apple because he's literally on the directorate list as being head of Black Hand. He's the only one we ever fully acknowledge as being there. He falls into kind of this external kind of a piece. We have our IT guys headed by Boris. We've got our internal affairs and counterintelligence stuff. We don't really talk too much about internal affairs and counterintelligence, most because we don't want to reveal how we do things. I am head of internal affairs. Boris is head of counterintelligence. So you've got all of these kind of different pieces. And you have a few more like Beyond, who is in our channel. It's one of our directors. He'd be a good one to get on. Nobody ever hears him talk.
Oh yeah, we definitely need a full market PVE from him for sure. Yeah, I'll get Beyond on for sure.
Yeah. See Beyond. That's what happens when you join the channel.
But he knows I'm coming after him. I do.
I like that. So he's like, what do you mean you hear Beyond talk all the time on the fleet? That's true. That is true.
Well, so I just a personal note, Dion and I have this weird fascination with corpses and we trade them personally. So he comes to me if I have them or not, which is very strange. But yeah, so Dion and I have that together.
I actually knew that about you. So that was actually one of the first things I knew about you was your corpse thing.
I know it's strange, but I get it. It's just funny. I just think it's hilarious that we eject a corpse out in space and it can be collected. It just fascinates me. So I joined the day after the war ended. I actually joined after a Mine One stream that was going on, and I finally relented to my husband after watching Meta Show for months and watching M2, which was the very first thing I watched in this game. It was a very different culture and community at this point, and I wanted to ask you about kind of the shift that we've had over the last couple of years. I've been doing this for 3 years now. I've definitely seen a huge shift in culture. What can you say about that for us?
So the culture of Goonswarm there have been several cultural revolutions. How many is kind of debated. There was a big one 10 or so years ago. It was actually mentioned get on the Fireside for some of the old fleets, like looking up the names of the old fleet doctrines we used to use, is very cringe. They're bad. It's just horrible on some of those, and that's been the way when so many of us started playing Eve. We were a whole lot younger than we are now. It's a lot of us were in our 20s or even younger. Some people were teenagers when they do it. After 10 or 15 years, I mean, I was in my 20s when I started playing. I am no longer in my 20s now. I am over 40 now. And so, you get that kind of change to where the language that's used, the way that people talk is different, and it should be. We're not edgy teenagers. I'm not sure how many of us actually were, but that's a thing, is to make sure that everything is proper, that the way we speak to each other is done a whole lot better. And as several people have mentioned in the chat now, when I joined Goons in, it was either 2012 or so, uh, it was quite a bit rougher than it is today. Um, the people in Goons are among the best people you can have as your friends. They will stick by you. They'll be there to help you, to do all those kind of things, to give you something in game, to teach you how to do something. Goons have gotten other goons jobs in real life. That was actually mentioned at Nom's memorial last night. There's any number of examples of that. But if you are not a goon, then we come off as the most horrible people you have ever seen. And there is a little something to that, because we are terrible people to people who are not us. And you hear that so much when somebody joins us. They're like, wow, I always thought you guys were the most awful people ever, until I was inside the group and I realized that it's some of the nicest, sweetest, most caring people out there. And that's something that has kind of always been there, but I really want to emphasize that piece of, we're all in this crazy game together.
Yeah, for sure. I experienced that firsthand myself this last December, and I couldn't thank this community enough for their support. It's kind of funny. We just became friends because of what had happened, and I've become friends with a number of alliance leaders that I didn't realize I would ever know, which has been great. I didn't realize that the community was like that, and even last night during Nom's Signo Vigil, it was really nice how we came together and supported each other. It's a really hard time for us right now, and I think that speaks volumes for how our community holds each other up and supports each other. I can't say that enough. I really can't, personally, myself. So,
and that's been our hallmark, once being the Signo Vigils. This is one of the
I know this
and,
is your thing, right? The Signo Vigils is kind of that's your baby, right? I
yeah,
really
it's
feel
one of the best and worst things about being chief of staff is I coordinate almost all of these now. Noms was a very special case because of how close he was to not only KF's leadership itself, but so many, I shouldn't say several, so
right,
many members
everybody,
of the
yes,
directorate.
or
Yeah.
and even general, yes.
But the Signo Vigils is something that, for the most part, I coordinate all those myself. I usually record them and provide and then I upload it to YouTube, and it's set to private. It's just for the family, and if the family tells me that they're good for me to release it to the public, then I do. But it's just to show them that there are a whole bunch of nerds around who have probably never met in real life, who care, who are there, and we want the family to know that people care, that they're whoever this person was uh, is missed, and it makes it. We've done a lot of Signo Vigils here of late in the last few years. I can't even tell you how many I've I've coordinated myself, but it's both so wonderful to see and so horrible that we have to do them. But is my job is to take care of my people, which I throw that blanket to all of Goonswarm, because that's what I do. I look internally, and so when we lose somebody, we got to make sure that goons have a place to come together and share the stories. Uh, and that's what Sino Memorials are. It's a chance for everybody to come together and light a Sino, do all the crazy things. Fire lances. We did one for one of our members, and we actually nearly reinforced our own Keep Star with lances. We fired so many lances on the McManfist Keep Star. I was actually with Sniper for sure, and I think maybe his Vintage was there too. We were talking in the command channels, and we're like, oh my god, we've gotten the McManfist Keep Star to like 50% with our own lances because the goons can't aim nuclear weapons. And so I actually had to tell people on the memorials, like, okay, guys, we're going to sequence our lances so we don't reinforce our own Keep Star. Because we actually very nearly did it. And that's, that was one of the funniest things is when I actually had to tell the guys, because there were so many Titans firing lances on the McManfist Keep Star. Guys, we need to slow down the rate of lances on the McManfist Keep Star. And that's one of the best things to ever be able to see is everybody out there to do a memorial.
Yeah. I was around for a number of them before I had to experience one myself, but I can't even thank you enough for stepping up and being supportive with the Signo Vigil that I do personally. So it's just an amazing experience, and it's really nice for the family. I can tell you from firsthand experience.
That's always great to hear, because most of the time, I relay it to them, and I don't talk to them because it's rare that I know the person. I'm usually relaying it through someone else who's talking to the person.
Yeah.
Well, I blabbered on for like 50 minutes.
No, you're good. Like no, I love this. This is great. I do like I want to ask a couple more questions and then we'll ask chat if they have any questions of you and you can answer them if you can, and if you can't, we understand it. But like looking to the future, what do you see as the biggest opportunities or challenges for Goonswarm as a whole? Not necessarily military wise, but how do you see us growing in the future?
So our big push has been, what do we do with the new SOV right now? How is the new systems coming out? And we play the game, that's true. CCP determines some of the rules and they change them on us periodically, so it's really hard to kind of predict what's going to happen. We can usually predict within a couple of months what's going to happen, but there's a big patch coming up in a couple of months. So for right now, we're still at war. We're still deployed. We're out there shooting the enemy whenever they'll actually undock and come and fight us, which has not been a whole lot the last 2 weeks.
Understand.
But getting new stuff put in place. So solve mechanics at the beginning. I remember when we call it Fozzy It's formerly called Aegisov. It's what we use now with the Entosis links. When that came out, we all hated it. It was terrible. It got a smidge better. For those people who remember the things we used to call Fozzy Claws, they were awful. It has a lot of echoes of that to me right now. Of some of the mechanics just don't feel like they're fully fleshed out and fully formed. I know that Kaz and Angry, as our CSM guys, have asked us in the directorate. We've asked Kremlin for help and said, talk to us. What's going on? What do you see? What do your members see? They write it all down, or I relayed it to them. Kaz is almost always in those meetings, so he's writing it down. It's communicated, and then we do see some positive changes from it. The letter that Asher did a few weeks ago, along with so many of the leaders of the null blocks, we got almost immediate results. I was stunned how fast CCP responded. I've been to FanFest a couple of times. I've met a number of the devs. Icelandic companies usually do not respond that quickly this time of the year. So that was a real credit to the CSM guys pushing it, to that letter, just everybody going, hey, things need to change.
That's
And I
great.
need to make my answer shorter so we don't run over time. So what was your
No,
next question? I
we're
forgot.
we're doing good. No, okay. So the last question, then we'll open up to some questions, and we'll close it out with that. What do you? So when you think about your time in Goonswarm, what do you hope to be remembered for? What impact do you hope to leave on the alliance as your legacy?
It's a hard question to answer because when I started, I was a background guy. I was running classes. I'm a teacher in my real life, and if it's someone is doing something that they didn't think they could do, um, as a teacher, and it's a complete like trope, and it's the thing that you always hear teachers say. And when you've got a true teacher, not some petty bureaucrat, true teachers want to see people learn
Yeah,
um, something new, some new skill, some new thing. The greatest joy that I get from being in university is the pay it forward thing. When I would show someone a new mechanic or some weird thing that they didn't know existed. Uh, I did this on the Fireside just a couple of weeks ago. Asher wasn't able to make it because of the crazy timers that we have been doing. And there's a search function you can use to find yourself and unmute yourself, um, which I believe Carneros taught me. But
oh,
it's something that's
don't teach anybody else that.
yeah,
Nobody needs to know about that.
yeah, or the fact that if you're in game and you press L, just the letter L, not in a chat window, it will pull open an in-game bookmarks for your system, and you can right-click and warp to your bookmarks from anywhere in the system by doing that. That's not written down anywhere that I've ever
Oh,
seen.
yeah. It's all those. Yes, I agree. Yeah, all those
And
things.
so it's those kind of things. So a legacy is not what I want. What I want, I guess that is the legacy, is that people learn something new and can then teach it to someone else, that next generation. Eve will only survive if we have more new people coming in, and they need to learn all of these weird tricks that nobody knew. Um,
Yeah.
there's somebody. It's like, I never knew that, Commander. I hope you're talking about that L key thing, but that's that's there you go. Somebody learned something new, um, and that's the most fun. And that's why I do the history with Uncle Rangers that I've been doing for University. Sarah, I'm going to say browbeat me because I think that's fair. Sarah browbeat me into doing those for about the last year. I've been doing them, um, and these things that so many of us know and we don't even think about because we've always done them. Like, I don't know who taught me that lowercase L trick, but I've done it for years. Sniper actually taught me one the other day. If you form a, well, I guess it's been months, but if you form a fleet, you can drag your alts from a chat window and it will send automatic invites. I used to do it one at a time, like a
Oh, I didn't
scrub.
even know that. I just learned that today. That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah, so Control A, like in a chat window, and you can drag them into your fleet, and it will send invites to all of your alts. I would advise you to make a channel with just your alts, so it's easier. That's what I did. But Dave, I'm not an FC. I don't
No,
need to
he's talking to
undock.
me. He's not talking to you. He's talking to me. No, okay, but
Uh,
you're preaching the choir because my background is I worked a lot with Ascendance Rising, which is the high sec kind of feeder corp to ASCII. I'm now starting to work with Karma Fleet University. The new players have always been my passion. I can only get them so far because I only know so much in this game, but I totally get where you come from, and I think that's where we connected the most in the last couple of months is that. But I love seeing character development and seeing how we progress characters in our game and seeing goons flourish in nullsec. So I love that you have that same passion.
yeah, one thing I will tell everybody is those new like card things on your ship hanger. Um, I'm not super fan of those. You can turn that off if you guys didn't know. On the very top of your ship hanger, like the button in the middle has 4 options, and one of them is icon. That's the way they used to be. So if that little card thing, that's super wide, which drives me crazy. I hate that. You can turn that off. You can actually reset them to the old way of the icons.
Good to know. We learned.
Yeah,
We learned. We learned a lot.
Yeah, I'll say those card things are relatively new. I mean, it's been weeks, but not like 10 years. Those have been around.
So we have a couple more minutes. I would love to open it up to the chat. If you guys have any questions of Ranger that you would like to ask, he's not going to give anything OPSEC away, but feel free to put some in, and I'll let him respond on his own.
So, who are the top 5 favorite Goon FCs of all time? Well, I mean, of all time, of course, we have to put Asher in there because we all know he doesn't FC anymore.
Asher, yeah, Asher's, yeah. Sorry, Dave.
It is funny because when I look back on the FCs, one of my favorite FCs, guy named Lyris, because he was awake when we were doing siege fleets in Fountain, and I was on his fleet almost every night for probably 6 months, and we would shoot pauses with stealth bombers, and then we would black ops out when they came to try and hit us. So it's things like that piece. I've worked with so many FCs. Picking just a few of them is really hard to do. And Bane wants to know how many freighters I've lost. The answer is 0. I've never lost or misplaced a freighter. I've misplaced one Blops almost 10 years ago that Elvalar has given me a hard time about, that has become mythic within Karma Fleet, and it was one Blops. So is Mayo in fact too spicy for Asher? Yes, he actually admitted that on the Fireside today. 100%. He admitted that on the Fireside today, which I have to admit was such an annoying thing for him to do, because it's so much more fun when he denies things that we all know are true. But he did.
I think we have a meme for that, actually. Sorry, Asher. I know you're watching. There
That's
you go.
pretty good.
That was created right during the middle of this meta show.
Yeah, Sima poked me about that, and I have to admit I did not switch over to see what he did. But that's something else I should have mentioned as part of our org, is the keeping the morale up, not only in our directorate to make sure they don't burn out, but keeping our guys entertained. What does that? Mind One, our classic DJ who will be on tonight, does all of that. The meta show that we do, right? That you all do. The firesides that Asher does. And Asher has asked this question before, and it's, what other null block does a weekly thing where not only the Alliance head is there, but the directors are there? As far as I know, it's just us. I don't know of any other group that does that. It's talking to them. We have twice. It's every other week meetings with our CEOs of our corporations. We do all those kind of things to help get this. Sensible question. If you could balance any ship in EVE, what one would it be? I have been a give missiles guy since I started EVE, so I'm always in the Caldari group. My favorite ship of all time is actually a Caracal.
Oh my god, you're speaking my language. That's what I use all the time with AR and KFU. So yes, I love it.
I love Caracals. I will admit, as Neo just said there, make caps great again. Yeah, the prices on them is too high for Titans and Supers. Dreadnoughts and everything are getting pretty good. They're not so horrible. But I remember a time when you could get a Dreadnought for less than $1 billion ISK. And that was absolutely a thing. Tristan's, yep, my first mining ship was a Tristan, actually.
That was my first ship that I ever had in this game, was a Tristan. So I agree with that. All right, y'all, we are just at the top of the hour, and I don't want to cut off all the amazing comments from Ranger, but we do need to wrap up our show. And I did see Seema's comment about Nima, and for sure she's on my hit list to get onto the show and have her talk about her 30 jobs in this alliance as well. So more to come. I have an initiative to show y'all more of the alliance leaders, just like we've talked to Ranger today. And I'm so thankful that you were here, Ranger, and your insights today. It was absolutely amazing. And I hope you all have an amazing week.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
for
you
having
guys.
me. Have a good day, night, morning, for wherever you are in the world.